Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tim Eads of Eads Instruments, and today I got a good one for you. We're going to be calibrating and breaking in a brand new nut. So, stick with me and enjoy the show. There are two things I wanted to capture and elaborate on before the video fully began. There's three types of tools that you can use for breaking in a new nut. So first one would be these toothpick kind of things. They're easily available online. If you were to purchase, like I did, if you were to purchase like a luthier kit of some sort, these would probably be in that pack. They're fairly inexpensive to get a hold of. Get it on Amazon for like 10 to 12 bucks. The con that I would have with this is they get dull fairly quickly. So if you're in the middle of a job or something and you really need that thing, if you really need these things to cut, then you need to do it a little bit faster. They get dull fairly quickly and you end up just kind of replacing. So the second would be sandpaper. But as you could imagine, you know, sandpaper is pretty easy to get a hold of. Chances are you probably have it at your house or in your shop or anything like that. But the biggest problem that I would have is, especially if you're doing like in the higher register, like where your string gauge is, you know, 10 or 13, this little thin spot is going to widen up the slot too much, which will cause tuning instability. The ones that I use are these really thin nut files. I think they're great. These nut files, they work great. They're very accurate. They give me enough groove, and if you wanted to cut deeper, they can. They last a lot longer than both, you know, the toothpick and the sandpaper. Downfall is they're expensive. So, which also kind of brings into the next topic that I wanted to talk about and mention for a quick second, which is whenever you are calibrating a nut or working with a new nut or anything like that, you want to work with the bend angle and also the pitch angle. So say for like a Les Paul, from the D and the G, they come out like this, versus a Stratocaster, the slots are straight. So if it has, you know, a 17 degree or 13 degree or whatever the degree pitch from the headstock and the tuner to the nut, you want to compensate that. If it has a bend, you also want to compensate for that as well. And what that does is you create less tension, which increases your tuning stability. Shoutouts of the week going to Roy Casadas, Nathan Enders, Mark Gucci, Gordon Popovich, Chas Clover, James Gay, Bart of Busted Classic, and Brandon Piku. Yes! Alright, so first thing when we are breaking in a new nut that we need to do is we need to tune the guitar to the customer's preference. In this case, it's going to be standard E. The second thing that we have to do is set the neck relief to where we want it. For me, that's at 0. Some people think that's crazy. They're like, man, too much fret buzz. But no, if you do the prep work that I showed you, you'll get great results. It'll feel nice and tight. And since this bridge is already having that top wrap, the top wrap tune-o-matic, this thing is going to feel nice and smooth, bends all day, the true Gibson feel that a lot of people are going for. So let's do it. So when I have a guitar that doesn't need the nut to be replaced, I usually put a little bit more time into the break-in process. But for this, in this case, I know that I'll have to take the strings on and off consistently. So that's going to be breaking in the strings for me. In long term, it will be able to, maintain the life of it. Sometimes when I break in new nuts or trying to get new nuts and file down those grooves, what ends up happening is you really you tighten it up. I mean, as you'll see, I'm going to record the whole process. You know, you'll tighten this up, then you have to loosen it back so I can get that groove open again, so I can slide it out, and then just keep continuing that process until I get the numbers right on both the 12th fret and also the nut. Well, all right. So, next step is we have to set the neck relief to the guitar. After we set the neck relief, we're going to set the action height that I'm looking for here at the 12th fret. So, anytime that you cut into these grooves, you need to readjust at the 12th fret. What ends up happening if you don't, you could be too low here, but your neck is set, right here. So as soon as you raise it up, well, you're going to be a little bit higher on this end. So you're always just going to be constantly kind of, as you'll see, you'll be constantly going back and forth in between here. And by the chance that you dig too deep into the groove, well, then you just basically compromise the nut, and you got to hope that nothing buzzes at that point. So it all needs to work cohesively and harmoniously. Let's do it. All right, so we are now good on the relief set with the neck. Now, next step, you're going to find the action height that I'm looking for on the 12th fret of both the high E and the low E. Since this is a two-nomadic bridge, the radius that is also matching with the neck means that I only need to adjust, these two screws. If this was an independent guitar like a Fender Stratocaster or Telecaster or some type of guitar like that, you'd have to do each individual saddle. So that's the one thing that's nice about these two nomadic bridges is you can only have to adjust, by these posts only, and everything else will match the curvature of the guitar. So let's do it. Let's get to the action height. All right, so we are at a point now to where we have set the neck relief to where we want it to. We have set the action height at the 12th fret to where we want it. Now we are at the point in this process as to which we need to file down these grooves to make it so that these numbers will be where we want it. Just a quick heads up, I'm pretty ADD when it comes to this stuff. I want to make sure anytime I file here, I want to also compensate this bridge accordingly so the action height is always going to be consistent. If you don't do that, you might find yourself grooving or digging in too much or too little. You always want this angle to be, you always want the angle to be right in order for this guitar to play as optimum as possible. So what we need to do now is do some math here, which I already did. I made myself kind of look like a fool off camera, but I wanted to make sure that I conveyed it to you guys properly. So Stu Mac gave us the numbers that we should just ballpark our guitars, right? Especially if it's in like a standard E or something. So their website recommends to be 0.020 inches on the low side, and on the high side they recommend it to be 0.012 inches, which the difference would be 0.020 minus 0.012 inches is going to be 0.008 inches. So from there, you'll need to divide that number by 6, which comes out to 0.0013 repeating, which rounding up is going to be 0.0014 inches. So what I did was I did that math up ahead of time so I can just show you guys to give us a ballpark of where we need the A the D, the G, and the B string, because we already know where we need to be with both the high and the low E's, but we don't know where we need to be for the A, D, G, B. So 0.0200 minus 0.0014 gave us 0.0186. So we round that up to 0.019. So 0.019 inches is now going to be the standard for where we want the A string. But I kept that number. I also kept not only do I keep the rounded up number, but I also kind of tagged along with the original number as well. So 0.0186 minus 0.0014 got us to 0.0172. So 0.0172 rounded down to equal 0.017, and vice versa. I kept going until I got there to the high E. So what we're shooting for is the 0.012 with the high E, 0.014 inches on the B, 0.016 at the G, 0.017 on the D, and then 0.019 at the A. My technique might not be the greatest, but that's going to be how I approach this. Everybody is different. Bring on the criticism, because I'd love to hear it. And I'm not kidding. Like, I really try and thrive on any kind of constructive criticism. I've only been on this for 2 years, so I haven't reached my full potential yet. And you only do that is if you can hear out criticism from professionals or from people that have walked that path before you to pretty much guide you and help you. So now that we have those numbers, let's start 0.0. So this can come down. Again, we're going to file down the nut slot or the nut groove, and then we're going to compensate the bridge to go back to the action height that we want. So here's the point where I'm going to put it on a time lapse until all of them are right.